Welcome everyone, I'm Blake from Bourbonr. This is the review of the 2017 Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition. If you'll see in this comment or in this post that we also did a semi-blind tasting of the 2013 to 2017 Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition. The sound quality on that didn't turn out as great as I would have liked, so I went ahead and decided to review it in this post or in this video as well. So if you're looking to get a bottle, you have a better idea, because a lot of the reviews, it gets kind of confusing. There's 5 of us tasting 5 different whiskeys, so keeping track of it with bad sound quality makes it a little more difficult. So I'm definitely going to post those results because I think they were very interesting on how everything stacked up with the Four Roses Small Batch over the past few years. But for as far as the 2017 goes, I wanted to give it its own review as well, because I know that's what a lot of people will be looking at this year. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into the review. So the 2017 small batch, if you're not familiar, Four Roses releases this once a year. It's a barrel proof version of the small batch, consisting of usually 3 to 4 different mash bills, ages between 12 and all the way up to 18 years in some of the older limited editions. So for the 2017 small batch limited edition, it's a blend of OESK 15 years, OESK 13 years, and OESV 12 years. So I did a little infographic in this post, and you can kind of check out how it's changed over the years. OESK and OESV are always popular, but they're really just cycling through the same 3 to 4 mash bills in the small batch limited edition, which, if you're a fan of Four Roses, OESK is probably at the top of your list for your favorites. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a try. So this is the second time that I've tried it, so we'll see what I think. The nose is spicy. It instantly has that fruitiness and spiciness that you expect from a Four Roses, especially an OESK, or that's heavy with the OESK. There's a little bit of caramel, but it's mainly that fruitiness and that spiciness. It has some floral notes, but not like a heavy floral. The taste is, it's sweet, it's honey, it's a little bit of vanilla, more pepper, black pepper, and kind of like a chili spice. The finish fades a little bit. It's a little charred on the finish, and I remember this from my initial tasting of it is, excuse me, the initial notes were pretty good and pretty consistent, but it definitely kind of fades off into more of a charred or hotter finish than I would like. I'm starting to get a little more mint on the nose. Yeah, you get plenty of that rye spice, which is nice, but it's just it's good. You can't say it's not good. It just doesn't compare to some of the older Four Roses. Yeah, more of the cinnamon, a little bit of that cinnamon syrup or cinnamon cereal note is coming through. But all in all, it feels a little bit lighter than some of the previous releases. For a barrel proof, I believe it's uncut. They may filter. I can't remember. I believe they do filter this, but that doesn't make a huge difference. But you just don't get that real thick syrupiness that you get in some of the other small batch releases. Now the nose is moving to more of the oaky and the tobacco, and that's typically what you see in these kind of bourbons. It starts off with that sweetness, a little bit of the spice and fruitiness. Then you fade more to the aged notes like the tobacco and the oak and other woods. You know, a little bit of almond extract, that kind of thing. It's definitely a good bourbon. You know, the debate we have with any Four Roses review that I do, is it better than a Four Roses private barrel? And there's no question on this one. I can go and pull 4 or 5 different private barrels out of my bunker now that I would pick over it any day of the week. So I'm not going to say it's disappointing, but it's just not on par with what they've done with the small batch limited edition in the last few years, which was interesting to kind of go back to the blind tasting we did. So 5 tasters, everyone really had a different. There were some similarities, but there were some things that were across the board. You know, what I did was had everyone rank their 1 to 5, and then did the reverse order. So if you thought it was first place, it got 5 points, second place 4 points, and so on. So I went and ranked it like that, and it actually ended up being the 2016 that came in first place. 2016 was first, 2014 was second, 2015 was third, 2017 was fourth, and 2013 was fifth. I know what you're saying. Those of you who've had the 125th anniversary limited edition, how in the world it must, you know, the people tasting must not have had a clue about bourbon to rank it so low. And so what I think happened here was I've had my 2013 bottle open for basically since 2013. I think I got it in late 2013, and I'm pretty sure this is the same bottle I've had this whole time. So it's been open. We talked about it in our little tasting that Four Roses, for whatever reason, just doesn't age really well in the bottle. It definitely has a short shelf life compared to some other bottles, which I'll pull out, and they seem to stay fairly consistent. You know, it'll drop off a little bit, whereas Four Roses seems to find a cliff if it's been open for more than a year or so. And I've noticed that in other tastings, having that bottle in there. So I put it in there, but really you could probably exclude that one from the rankings because it's not fair to put it up against other bottles. All other bottles in the competition or in the blind tasting, let's see, we opened the 2017 sample that day, we opened up the 2015 that day, the 2016 that day, and then the 2014 I'd opened about 4 or 5 months ago. So, and it was still fairly full, so it didn't have a whole lot of airtime to it. You know, it seems to be that year mark where things start to really dive down. So if you look at the results and think that, oh man, they're crazy, if you've tasted the 2013, I know it is a really good bourbon. So that's probably what happened with that one. Which, tasting blind, this 2017 came in last place for pretty much everyone. Or not last place, but towards the bottom for everyone. I'm looking at the results now, and yeah, it just I don't know. I'd like to put it up against some other bourbons, but as far as it goes with the small batch limited edition, it's kind of a little bit of a down year. So what I wanted to do was taste it against the 2014, which I didn't have a bottle of the 2016. A friend of mine had brought it with them to the tasting, so I don't have that one, which ranked first in the blind tasting, but I do have the 2014, so I'm just going to give a few notes on that to kind of give a little comparison of what I'm talking about. See, it's very similar nose. It's just a little bit heavier. It just has a little more darker notes, a little more brown sugar. The fruit just is a little more forward, and you know, a little more like the prune or the dried apricots, that kind of thing. Not as much light fruit. hmm And then going to the taste, it just has much more of like that cobbler fruitiness. You know, a cobbler, you think of it's buttery, it's fruity. You know, it's got some spice in there, and that's more of what I'm getting with this. Yeah, just really good cinnamon, nutmeg, baking. You know, all the baking spice. Um, a little bit of the mint and not necessarily tobacco, but a little more leather. Uh, but just a really good pour. So here's what's interesting about the 2014 was it kind of got written off a little bit. Not you know, not by everyone, but 2013 was just so great. And even you know, Jim Rutledge, the master distiller for Roses at the time, said he thought it was the best bourbon he had blended. This whole thing, it had an 18-year-old bourbon in the 2013, and then comes 2014. 2014 has a 9-year-old OBSK, a 13-year-old OBSV, a 12-year-old OESV, an 11-year-old OBSF. You don't see the OBSF in many of the small batch limited editions, and you definitely don't see it drop below 10 years. And I just remember people being totally set back by this, that you know they had run out of stock, or they had run out of honey barrels, and everything was going to be young from here on out, and that kind of thing. Well, you know, of course, everyone had just freaked out a little bit early, because then they came back in 2015 with some much older barrels. Now they haven't hit the 18 in a small batch limited edition in like they did in 2013, but you know, still that 15. I believe there was a 16-year-old barrel, so I would say that they are still in good shape with aged barrels and everything. I don't have any insider information, but you know, I still think it's okay. We'll continue to see good releases. So yeah, go back. There's smokiness. It has the hot tamale candy taste. It's just really good. So you know, not to say I'm disappointed with the 2017 release, but it's down in comparison. So if you do have the option to buy the Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition or something else, maybe this is a year to do that, to go with something else. But depending on what it is, if you love Four Roses, you can't buy a bad bottle from them. So, but if you're buying bourbon on a budget, maybe save your $150 and go buy 2 or 3 private barrel picks, because you can find stuff out there that's just as good as I believe this is. So that's going to be it for tonight. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and I'll get to them as fast as I can. Thanks, guys.